What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my team selection for Game Week 13. So I'm going to show you how the team is looking and why I want to free hit this week, how the current free hit drafts are looking, including some alternatives as well. And before all that, I'll take you through how I did in Game Week 12. So let's get into it. So Game Week 12 was a really good week for me and also a very jammy week as well. So I scored 60 points, which took me from 286k in the world to 125k. So I'm quite close to the top 100k already. And I feel like, and I haven't gone back and checked this, but I feel like this is the highest I've been at this point in the season for a good few seasons now. So I'm pretty happy with how things have gone. I've only got my free hit chip left. I know other people have got multiple chips, so there will be some catch up. And I also know from many years of experience of playing this game, 1 or 2 bad weeks, all of a sudden you're 3, 4, 500k anyway. Or even worse if things have gone really badly. But I've got to be delighted with the season so far. And hopefully I can kick on from here. In terms of the jam, Cunha no-show meant that I got Dewsbury Hall off the bench. So I got his 9-pointer last week. I got a 13-pointer this week. Goal, 3 bonus, and defensive contributions for the second game in a row, which is, of course, a huge amount of jam. For what it's worth, either way, I would have got a good score this week. Because if I kept Semenyo, I would have got Dewsbury Hall. I went for Cunha, I got Dewsbury Hall. And the alternative move was to get Minte, which meant Dewsbury Hall would have stayed on the bench, but I would have had Minte's 11 points. So either way, I was getting a pretty good score, but the way it happened was absolutely ridiculous. So on the deadline stream, I knew I was going to use my second free transfer to cover Semenyo just in case he was a no-show. It was either Semenyo to Cunha, because Cunha's a huge differential. He's got West Ham at home in 14. I was probably going to free hit in 13, Wolves away in 15, or it was Paquetá to Minte. The correct move was Paquetá to Minte, because I still want to do that move. So I could have just brought it forward a couple of weeks. And if I got stuck with Semenyo, not an issue. Sunderland away in 13, Everton at home in 14. So the correct move was to get Minte. I decided to get Cunha. During the deadline stream, I checked my DMs on Instagram because there was a guy that gave me some Evan Nielsen information a couple of weeks ago. I mentioned it on the deadline stream. I wasn't sure if it was legit because it's the first time he'd messaged me. Turns out it was. So I checked my DMs, nothing from him. So I sold Semenyo for Cunha. I then checked my DMs again after the deadline stream. He's tried calling me at 10:51 to tell me that Semenyo is going to play. So all of a sudden, I kind of feel a little bit sick. Semenyo is going to play. I've sold him for Cunha. Semenyo's ownership is huge. What an idiot. Why have I done that? Then the squad comes out and Semenyo's not in there. I tell you now, I am absolutely delighted. I couldn't have been happier at that point to see that Semenyo wasn't playing. I think, great. Now I've got Cunha, massive differential. Everyone else has got Semenyo. Here we go. And then later that day, we find out Cunha's pulled out of switching some Christmas lights on because apparently he's got an injury in training. Then all the rumours are it's just minor, etc. He might make the squad. And then he doesn't make the squad. And then I've got Dewsbury Hall off the bench. So I've sold Semenyo so that I don't have to have Dewsbury Hall playing this week. I've got Cunha, he doesn't play, so I get Dewsbury Hall anyway. Obviously, I'm a Man United fan, so I'm kind of hoping Dewsbury Hall does something, but that Man United win. And then when he scored after the red card, I just had to laugh about the situation, honestly. Because partly I thought, well, Man United will come back here anyway. And I said to my wife, that's the guy that scored that I've got coming off the bench for Cunha. And she goes, that's good, isn't it? I was like, not really. He's just scored against United. So I need them to win now. It just didn't happen. And I mean, I don't even want to get into that performance from Man United. It was terrible. Everton were extremely good, by the way. Dewsbury Hall, Njai, Grealish, plus others, really good. But like, what a ridiculous situation FPL puts us into sometimes. Honestly, the roller coaster of sold Semenyo, hate it. Semenyo starting, hate it even more. Semenyo's not in the squad, love it. Cunha's not in the squad, hate it. And it finishes with 13 points. And I wish it wasn't at the expense of Man United, but that's how it goes sometimes. So absolute massive bench jam, 60 points, 125k. Just elsewhere, Saka captain over Haaland. I know a lot of people saying that Haaland captainers were unlucky, 1.5 XG. Fair enough, right? Should have had a penalty. Arsenal scored 4 goals. I felt like Arsenal would do really well against Spurs, and I get it, right? Saka's underlying numbers in that game were not great. But in another world, Trossard makes a pass, Eze makes a pass, Saka's in space, shot on goal, no defender in front of him. Maybe he gets a return or two. So I went for Saka because I thought Arsenal would just comfortably beat Spurs. That's exactly what happened. So I get Haaland captain as feeling unlucky, but I mean, if I told you it was going to be 4-1 before the game, you probably would have been a bit more keen on Saka, right? Like, if I told you it was going to be 2-1 to Newcastle or 4-1 to Arsenal, yeah, look, whatever, right? In the end, none of the captains did anything. Haaland, Saka, some people went Bruno. Saka got defensive contributions at least, which was nice, but would have been nice to get a return as well. Lequara 11-pointer, Anderson 10, Timber 5. I mean, Timber should have scored from a corner in that game, and he scored in the corner from a corner in the Champions League last night, by the way, which is quite funny. And they should have had a clean sheet, because the only goal they conceded was just an absolute worldie from Richarlison, where Zubamendi should have just passed the ball and not lost it. Spurs just didn't create anything outside of that. So Timber and Reyes should have had double clean sheet, but whatever, right? 60 points, great week. Dewsbury Hall, I mean, if it wasn't against Man United, I would say that Dewsbury Hall has already done enough to get on the wall. He's had 3 big scores, 12, 9, 13 points. I've had every single one so far. And he's dropped in price to 4.9, so people have sold him. I think he's a great option. Anyway, hopefully Cunha's back next week. Let's talk about Game Week 13. So this is my team in full as it stands for Game Week 13. I've got 1 transfer and 0.3 in the bank. So it's Raya and Timber double up for Arsenal defence against Chelsea away, Lequara against Man United at home, Senesi Sunderland away, and then Van Dijk West Ham away. Liverpool lost 4-1 last night in the Champions League, by the way. They are not in a good place. Some people might look at this team and say that I should play Paquetá over Van Dijk. I kind of get it, to be honest with you. Dewsbury Hall against Newcastle at home, Saka Chelsea away, Fernandes and Cunha double up on Man United attack against Palace away. Cunha still yellow flagged. Amorim did say he doesn't think it's serious, but we'll have to wait for an update ahead of this weekend. If he is out, my hope would be that he'll be back for Game Week 14 at a minimum. Now, if any player does miss 13, they're going to be a risk for 14 because it's midweek. But with Man United, their game's not till Thursday. And he picked up this injury last Saturday. So hopefully he'll be fine by 14 at a minimum. And obviously, like I've said, he's a huge differential. West Ham at home in 14 is great. Wolves away in 15 is also really good as well. Mateta Man United at home. Let's see how many minutes he gets in Europe tonight. And then Haaland Leeds at home. I am 99% sure I'm going to free hit. I haven't hit the button yet. I don't really know why. A few people have asked me, because usually with blanks and doubles, you know what week you're going to free hit. So you just activate it straight away and get the price rises. And I have missed a few this week already. Like Rodgers has gone up. Thiago's gone up. I don't... Part of me just thinks, because it's single game week players only, what if there's some information that comes out on Friday, which means the free hit is less valuable? But I don't even know what that news would have to be. It would have to be multiple bits of bad news, like all the free hit players I want are injured or something like that. Because I was thinking, even if Arteta comes out on Friday and says Saka's out for a month, okay, I could do Saka to Foden in my actual team and just save the free hit, maybe to get triple Arsenal back in Game Week 16 if I sell Saka. But even then, is getting Foden into this team enough to put the free hit off? Probably not, especially if Cunha misses Palace away. So I'm 99% sure I'm going to free hit. I've thought about it all week. I've got my drafts put together. I'll talk about them in a second. I just haven't hit the button yet for reasons I don't really know and can't really explain, just in case there's something that means the free hit's not valuable. But I just don't see that happening. And people will look at this team and say it doesn't need a free hit. As I've explained many times before, that's the same every week. And in my opinion, this is the worst my team is going to look between now and Game Week 16. And I don't really want a free hit in 17, 18, 19, etc. Free hit 15 is nice, but I want to use my transfers that have got to be used before Game Week 16 in 15 rather than 14. So if you free hit in 15, you've got to get all your transfers used before Game Week 16 and Game Week 14. I just don't really want to do that. And also, my Game Week 14 team's going to look good. So having to use transfers on it won't be ideal. I'd rather use them in 15 to start setting up for 16 onwards. So I think free hit makes a lot of sense. It is quite funny, though, because I'm probably going to go for Liverpool attack on my free hit, and they've just lost again last night. I'm also going to take out all my Arsenal players. What happened in the Champions League last night? Saka assisted a Timber goal. So all these things making you think I really shouldn't free hit. Like taking out Arsenal, the best team in the league. Could they beat Chelsea? Of course they could. Could Lequara and Mateta get big scores against Man United? Of course. Could Dewsbury Hall get a double-digit haul? Of course he could. The guy's a legend. But I think the free hit team looks a lot better. And I think the differences between my actual Game Week 13 team versus my Game Week 13 free hit is bigger than what it will be in Game Week 16. So that's the team I'm going to free hit. Let's talk about the drafts. So this team is what I would consider my main free hit team at the moment. If the deadline was in 5 minutes, this is the kind of thing that I would lock in. Obviously, I'm just like everyone else. So it's a free hit week. I'm looking at lots of different combinations of players, other options that I can bring in. But I quite like how this is set up. So I've got Martinez and Cash double up on Aston Villa defence against Wolves at home. Do I fully trust the Villa defence? Of course not. But it's a really nice fixture. Martinez has got a habit of saving penalties. So if Wolves get one, you never know. And Cash is probably the most attacking defender in that team. Luka Dean, you just can't trust because of Maatsen. Luka Dean got subbed at half-time last week. I just can't go there, so it's got to be Cash. And Villa just don't have a huge amount of defensive contribution defenders. So it's not like picking a centre-back is better. So I'm quite happy with that double up. If you look at the clean sheet odds, Villa are right up there this week, primarily because they're playing Wolves. Will they definitely get that clean sheet? Of course not, but they're nice and cheap. Then I've got Vandenberg instead of Collins. It's close between the two. Vandenberg's attacking numbers this season are slightly better, although I do think that's from very minimal chances, so there might not be a lot in it. Collins could end up being the better option, but ultimately Vandenberg's cheaper, and that's kind of handy. And his defensive contributions when he's played centre-back have actually been all right. So I think Vandenberg versus Collins, close call. I've got the cheaper option in right now. And then Nico O'Reilly is basically a lock for me. This whole defence, if I can afford it, I think is pretty much a lock at this point. Because Nico O'Reilly didn't start in the Champions League midweek. Aït-Nouri started instead. He got hooked at half-time. O'Reilly came on. I just don't see how he doesn't start against Leeds. And I think with this draft, I've got bench cover. Mukiele against Bournemouth at home. Good for defensive contributions and goal threat. And I've got Truffert against Sunderland away. So if O'Reilly does miss out, I've got cover. Now, if he was to be benched, then the chances are he would just come on, so it wouldn't matter. But I just think that it's Man City. Long term, I'm never going to put any guarantees on it. But I would be so shocked if O'Reilly doesn't start this game, honestly. So he looks like a really fun pick. I think it was, I'm just going to double check here. There was a game I watched of his. I think it was Bournemouth at home in game week 10. I watched him in that game. He scored, which probably helped. I just thought I've got to own him at some point. And this is the perfect week to do it. So he's pretty much a lock. Then I've got Salah, Foden, Schade, Rodgers, Gakpo in my midfield. 3 players that are pretty much nailed on are Salah, Foden and Schade. I have to have more than one Brentford attacker against Burnley at home. And Schade's minutes are better than Utara. That's pretty much it. And obviously I don't care about the 4 yellow card situation because if he picks one up this week, it won't be ideal for me, but I don't have to hold him long term. Foden's just got the best minutes of all the Man City attackers outside of Haaland. Like, I've looked at Doku, but he's much more likely to get you an assist than a goal. And although Foden's numbers this season haven't been great, the last 4 or 5 weeks they have picked up a bit. And then Cherky's the other one. Cherky, if O'Reilly wasn't such a fun option to go for, I'd be very tempted to go Foden and Cherky and Haaland and just triple up on Man City attack and go for a different defender. But I just really want O'Reilly. Like, Cherky to me feels like the more interesting pick versus Doku, because Doku is quite highly owned in like the wider world of FPL that aren't free hitting this week. Like, quite a few people have brought him in recent weeks. So I actually like Cherky as a differential, but Foden's just way more trustworthy for minutes. And unfortunately, that's the kind of boring manager I am. Minutes is where it's at. So Schade, Foden, I'm definitely going to go for Salah. Is it a massive risk? Not really, I don't think, actually. Is it a massive guarantee? No. I mean, last night I saw, I think Rob TFPL said to me, or said it in Discord, he said something like Liverpool had 25 or 27 shots last night and Salah had 1. Like, it's not great, but we know what he's been capable of in the past. I'm just hoping he comes back to being good against West Ham. And look, people will say that Liverpool are terrible right now, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree, but in their last 2 games, they've put up like 4 XG and only scored 1. Now, I'm not for 1 second saying that they deserved to win last night or that they deserved to win against Forest, but they probably did deserve to score more goals in those games. And as bad as Liverpool are, they're not West Ham. And before you say they are worse than West Ham, if I said to you, here's €1,000, you can put it on a West Ham win or a Liverpool win, and if you get it right, you get to keep that money. Would you really put it on West Ham? Honestly, think deep down. If money was at stake, would you go for West? I don't think so, right? I would definitely go for Liverpool. So I think I've got to go for Salah. And I'll be honest with you, I put a draft out last night that had Salah and Gakpo, and people hated it. And do you know what? It just makes me want to go for it more. I think on free hit, you want to go for as many players different to your actual team that are also massive differentials without going for stupid players for the sake of it. And in my opinion, Salah and Gakpo are not stupid players for the sake of it. They're players we've seen multiple returns from in the past. They've got a good fixture. And also, Ekitike went off injured last night. So if he's out for the weekend and Wirtz is still out, it's got to be a Gakpo, Isak, Salah front three. So Gakpo's minutes are going to be really good. Salah's minutes are going to be really good. I'm just going to do it. I to be honest with you, I've got almost zero doubts about Salah and Gakpo this week. It doesn't mean I will definitely go for Gakpo, but I think he's a good pick. And again, the more people that tell me he's rubbish, the more I just want to do it. They're both, like, I know Salah's overall ownership is quite high, but in terms of engaged managers, like people watching this video, the ownership is super low. So they're in for me. And then I've got Rodgers mostly because it's Wolves at home. I'll be honest, Rodgers has been a bit rubbish this season in terms of his underlying numbers. So I'm not fully locked on going for him. And there's a draft I've got in a minute where he's not in it. But because it's Wolves at home and because his minutes are so good, he probably does make the final team. And then up front, it's Haaland and Thiago. I mean, that's just an absolute lock. People are going to throw loads of names at me now. Have you considered this player? What about it? Like, yes, Mateta, Watkins, Sarr, even in Jai, I've looked at Szoboszlai at Liverpool in terms of attackers, Collins, Konza, Vardiol, Diaz from Man City, Van Dijk, Munoz. I've looked at all these players, but you know what I quite like? Like, people will say, you know Palace could smash Man United. Of course I do. But do you know what? Palace players are really highly owned. And, you know, it's so ridiculous to say this after he's just got a 14-pointer. But could O'Reilly outscore Munoz this week? Potentially. Could Rodgers or Gakpo outscore Sarr this week? Potentially. Could Salah outscore Mateta or Foden outscore Mateta? However you want to put it. Could Sharda outscore Mateta? Maybe that's a better matchup. Yeah, for 1 week it could happen. So why would I not just go for it? I'll be honest, the more I've thought about free hit 13, the more I kind of love it. Like, I looked at it weeks ago. It actually got to the point where I was thinking about it so much, I was surprised that other people weren't talking about it. Maybe they just didn't want to plan so far ahead, which is absolutely fine. Gameweek 13 is the worst week for my team. And also, I think it's the most interesting set of players that you get to free hit in. I've said this before, the free hit team in Game Week 6, I know I'm rambling a bit here, the free hit team in Game Week 16 will look better, right? If everyone's fit, I think a lot of people will drop Haaland, they'll go Salah against Brighton, Saka against Wolves, Palmer against Everton, maybe another Chelsea defender in there, triple Arsenal against Wolves. It will look great, of course it will, but lots of those players will be highly owned anyway, and lots of those players will be brought in Game Week 16. I will have triple Arsenal in my team as long as they all stay fit. Okay, I won't have Salah, but I'll have Haaland. I'll have double Man United attack against Bournemouth at home. Okay, I won't have Palmer, but if Saka gets injured, I can go and buy Palmer, right? So I think my Game Week 16 team will just look fine. So in fact, now I've talked through this team, I actually really like it. I'm pretty sure I will go for something like this. Unless there's an injury tonight in Europe or some information in the press conference tomorrow, I don't see how this changes all that much. But of course, I have thought about a draft with Bruno Fernandes, so let's talk about that. So basically, I put these teams and graphics together yesterday afternoon before the Champions League games, and when I was looking at that main free hit team that I've just spoken about, the two spots I was least sure about were Rodgers and Gakpo. Rodgers because his underlying numbers have been terrible this year, and Gakpo just because of minutes. Now, I'm a little bit more confident in Gakpo after last night, despite Liverpool doing badly, just because of the injuries. But I did think about how I could get Bruno Fernandes into the team. So essentially, in terms of the first 11, I've got Fernandes and Van Dijk instead of Rodgers and Gakpo, and a much cheaper bench. Now, there's a lot of midfield choice this week. Gakpo, Rodgers, Sarr, and Jai, etc. But with Bruno, I know he's going to play. I know the penalties are going to be there. He's got defcons. He's got good attacking numbers. And also, he's a constant differential because no one likes owning him. And I'll be honest, I'm human. And the thought of taking Bruno out of my team and then that being the week that he absolutely smashes it. And I know it's Palace away, so it's going to be difficult. But imagine if he got a double-digit score in this game and I free hit him out. Like, that would hurt. And also, and again, this graphic was put together before the Champions League last night. I've got similar feelings with Van Dijk. He's been awful. Liverpool have been terrible. But West Ham like to concede from set pieces. You know who's pretty good that hit the bar last night? Virgil van Dijk. He also gave away a penalty, but he did hit the bar, came close to scoring. He's going to get chances against West Ham. And I've kept Van Dijk and Fernandes for a long time. If I free hit them out the week where they do really well, that's going to hurt. Now, I think if you turn around and said Munoz is better than Van Dijk, he's also 0.1 million cheaper, just get him instead. That's fair. I did think about that. But then I've got Fernandes against Munoz, which on a free hit feels horrible. You've literally got the opportunity to not have any attackers playing defenders this week. Why would I put Fernandes against Munoz? So I think if I was going to go for this kind of team, I would go Fernandes and Van Dijk over Fernandes and Munoz. Obviously, there's a world where Fernandes scores, so does Munoz, but I would take the chance that doesn't happen. But after last night, I'm not sure I can do this. I'm really not sure I can free hit Van Dijk. Despite me thinking this could be the bit of the week he gets a huge score. Defcons, almost certainly. Clean sheet potential, definitely goal potential, but I just don't think I can do it. By the way, the bench, instead of Mukiele and Truefair, it's Stev and Pot, so it's nowhere near as good. But I do think I need to worry less about the bench, because although I've got 3 Man City players, if they don't start, they'll come on anyway. So that's an alternative draft, but I don't think I can do it. But I do have one more with Fernandes in that I think people will like a little bit better. So essentially with this draft, it's back to the 3-5-2, but it's got Fernandes instead of Gakpo. And at the back, it's Kelleher and Konza instead of Martinez and Vandenberg. So it still covers the same defences, 1 Brentford, 2 Villa, but it's Kelleher and Konza instead of Martinez and Vandenberg. Look, in a one-off week, anything can happen. It's absolutely possible that Kelleher and Konza could outscore Martinez and Vandenberg. But I will say, I think the Martinez-Vandenberg combination is better, because Konza is really clean sheet and that's it. Like, he could score me a goal, but he doesn't have huge goal threat, and he doesn't really have the potential to get defensive contributions. Vandenberg has both of those things, and Martinez is just as good as Kelleher in terms of an FPL pick this week. So I don't hate this, because it allows me to go Fernandes and Rodgers instead of Rodgers and Gakpo. But my preference is to go the Vandenberg-Martinez route. But this is definitely an option. The bench is slightly weaker again, but it's got Mukiele first bench still. It's just got Heaven, a 3.8 million defender that's probably not going to play second bench. But how unlucky would I have to be for 2 of that 11 to miss out? I've still got Dubravka to cover my goalkeeper. I've got Mukiele to cover 1 benching or 1 player. And by the way, someone asked me yesterday, why does the bench matter on a free hit? Look what happened with Cunha last week. Sometimes players get injured after the deadline, or they get injured before and we don't find out about it. So preferably I would have a good bench, but I don't think I need to worry about having a deep bench, basically. I think Mukiele's okay. So I quite like this. Again, do I need to force Bruno Fernandes in? No. But there's part of me that just kind of wants to keep him. By the way, one alternative of this draft I was thinking about last night is to have Szoboszlai instead of Rodgers, who scored last night, by the way, and played in midfield, and then keep the Martinez and Vandenberg combination in defence. And it just means a Stev first bench instead of Mukiele, which is nowhere near as good, but it still means I've got a playing defender there first sub and a playing goalkeeper to cover the main goalkeeper as well. So that's basically Martinez, Vandenberg, O'Reilly, Cash, and then Szoboszlai and Fernandes instead of Rodgers and Gakpo. It's all pretty close. It's basically these 2 spots. It's just those 2 midfield spots that I'm mostly thinking about. And then in some variations, it means I've got to change the defence. But that's the defence I want to go for. Martinez, Vandenberg, O'Reilly, Cash, I really like it. Sharda, Foden, Salah locked in. Thiago, Haaland absolutely locked in. This always happens on free hit. I will spend hours now thinking about this for 2 spots, which ultimately won't matter. I'm sure Fernandes, Szoboszlai, Rodgers, and Gakpo will just all blank, and it will just be Sarr and Njai that smash it. Who knows? And by the way, if Sarr plays tonight and only gets like 50, 60 minutes and gets an early sub, I might go for him, because Palace probably will beat Man United this weekend. That's it. That's what I'm thinking about. I've not hit the free hit button yet, despite having put active there, but I will do it today, if not tomorrow. I just don't see in what world I don't use it. I've thought about it so much. I've come around to loving the team as well, for the most part, apart from those 2 midfield spots. But the Gakpo and Rodgers one's probably fine, and the bench is a bit better as well. Anyway, I'll leave it there. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button. I'll catch you tomorrow for final thoughts.